What happened after the applause faded? For a brief moment, it felt like triumph. Applause echoed through launch events. Reviews praised innovation. Headlines declared a turning point. The car stood under bright lights, celebrated as proof that the industry still knew how to amaze. Then the lights went out. What followed was not failure, but something far quieter and far more revealing. Because once the applause faded, once marketing moved on and attention shifted elsewhere, the real test began. The test no stage, no keynote, and no press release can prepare a machine for. To understand why this moment matters, we need to look beyond the launch itself. The automotive world is skilled at celebrating beginnings, but it rarely stays long enough to examine what happens after excitement dissolves into ownership, after novelty gives way to routine, after promises confront reality. This car entered the world carrying enormous expectations. It represented years of research, bold decisions, and public confidence. Buyers believed they were stepping into the future. Engineers believed they had delivered it. For a while, both were right. Early ownership felt rewarding. Performance matched claims. Technology impressed. The machine behaved exactly as it was supposed to, under ideal conditions, careful use, and attentive maintenance. Satisfaction was high. Confidence was strong. But time changes the equation. Miles accumulated. Environments varied. Habits formed. The car encountered rushed mornings, neglected updates, inconsistent servicing, and the unpredictable rhythms of daily life. And slowly, almost invisibly, the story began to shift, not through dramatic breakdowns, through small moments, a feature that felt less intuitive over time, a system that demanded more attention than expected, a repair that took longer, cost more, or required expertise owners didn't anticipate. None of it was catastrophic, but together, it began to erode the glow left behind by applause. Owners stopped talking about innovation. They started talking about experience. And that distinction revealed a truth the industry often avoids. Success at launch is not success over time. A machine can be brilliant in presentation and still struggle in permanence. Because one celebration ends, what remains is not hype, but endurance. The car was about to be judged not by what it promised, but by how it aged. And that judgment would prove far more unforgiving than any critic on opening night. As months turned into years, patterns emerged that no launch review could capture. Owners learned the car's rhythms intimately. They discovered what aged gracefully and what demanded constant attention. The machine still performed well, but it no longer felt effortless. Ownership became a negotiation. The first friction appeared in the systems designed to impress early adopters. Features that dazzled during test drives required calibration, updates, and careful use to remain reliable. Software evolved quickly, but hardware aged at a different pace. What once felt seamless began to feel layered, complexity revealing itself through maintenance schedules and service visits. Repair costs rose subtly, not enough to cause outrage, but enough to change perception. Specialized components required specialized knowledge. Independent mechanics struggled to keep up. Owners who expected longevity found themselves planning around service availability rather than convenience. None of this meant the car was bad. It meant it was demanding. Online forums filled with quiet adjustments, tips for extending component life, workarounds for features that aged poorly. Owners shared solutions not because the company failed them, but because the machine required involvement to remain exceptional. That involvement became the dividing line. Some owners embraced it. They treated the car like a living system, worthy of attention and care. For them, the relationship deepened. They understood its quirks, respected its limits, and continued to praise its capabilities. Others felt differently. They had bought the promise of progress, not a responsibility. To them, the car's demands felt like a burden. The excitement of innovation had shifted into the effort of stewardship. And for those owners, disappointment grew quietly. Manufacturers watched closely. Warranty data revealed a split experience. Satisfaction remained high among engaged owners, while casual users reported declining confidence. The car wasn't failing. It was filtering its audience. And that realization unsettled leadership. A product celebrated for redefining the future was now revealing an uncomfortable truth. Innovation can age into obligation if it doesn't account for the people who must live with it every day. The applause had celebrated potential. Ownership exposed reality. And as the company debated how to respond, through updates, redesigns, or silence, the market was already drawing its own conclusions. Because when excitement fades, only one question matters. Does a machine still earn its place in your life? The answer, it turned out, was far more complicated than anyone expected. The company faced a dilemma it hadn't prepared for. The car was still admired, but admiration no longer guaranteed loyalty. Ownership data told a nuanced story. One executive struggled to translate into strategy. The machine excelled when treated carefully. It punished neglect quietly. And that balance, so elegant in theory, proved difficult in practice. Because most people don't want a relationship with their car. They want reliability without thought, presence without obligation. Engineers proposed solutions that revealed the depth of the problem. Simplify future systems. Reduce dependency on updates. Design features to degrade gracefully instead of demanding precision. But implementing those ideas meant admitting that the original vision had overestimated how much effort owners were willing to give. Marketing resisted. The car's identity was tied to advancement, to refinement, to being ahead. Softening that image risked undermining the very praise it had earned. Leadership hesitated, trapped between preserving reputation and improving lived experience. Meanwhile, the market moved on. Newer models arrived with fewer ambitions and lower demands. They didn't impress us deeply, but they fit more easily into daily life. Buyers who once chased innovation began favoring calm over novelty, predictability over brilliance. Resale values reflected the shift. Well-maintained examples remained desirable. Others dropped sharply. The car had become stratified, rewarding devotion, penalizing indifference. It was no longer universally appealing. It was selective. Inside engineering teams, the tone changed. What once felt like pride now felt like responsibility. They studied long-term ownership patterns obsessively, not to assign blame, but to understand a gap between intention and reality. They realized the car hadn't failed its mission. It had completed it. It proved what was possible. It showed how far technology could go. And then it revealed the cost of going that far, without restraint. The applause had celebrated ambition. Time revealed consequence. And in that space between them, the industry began to understand a lesson it had avoided for decades. Progress that doesn't age well isn't progress at all. As discussions turned toward successors and redesigns, one question began to dominate every room. Not how to impress again, but how to endure better next time. The reckoning arrived not as a crisis, but as a realization. The company didn't issue apologies or dramatic course corrections. Instead, it listened to owners, to data, to the quiet patterns that only time reveals. The next generation would be different. Engineers were given a new mandate, one shaped less by ambition and more by humility. Reduce dependency, design for aging, assume neglect, not perfection. Features would no longer compete for attention. They would disappear into background, doing their work quietly, patiently, without demanding admiration. The original car remained on the road, aging into a symbol rather than a benchmark. Enthusiasts still celebrated it. Historians still praised its courage. But the company no longer chased its shadow. They had learned that brilliance, when untempered, can exhaust the people it hopes to serve. When the success arrived, reactions were muted, but telling. It wasn't hailed as revolutionary. It wasn't framed as a leap forward. Owners described it with unfamiliar words. Calm. Trustworthy, easy. Sales grew steadily. Complaints declined. Ownership felt lighter. The lessons of the past had been absorbed, not erased. Innovation didn't vanish. It matured. Looking back, the first car's legacy became clearer with distance. It wasn't meant to be perfect forever. It was meant to reveal something essential. That applause measures moments, not years. That technology must live with people, not just impress them. The car that once stood beneath spotlights ultimately served a deeper purpose. It taught an industry how to listen after the noise ends. Because what happens after the applause fades is what truly matters. And the machines that endure are not the ones that shine the brightest at launch. They're the ones that ask the least of us, long after the lights go out. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future. What